Welcome back to Midnight Society, the Bradford Chronicles, the YouTube channel, where we delve into the most perplexing and chilling cases from around the world. Today, we're discussing a case that shook the small town of Ozark, Alabama, and remained a mystery for nearly 2 decades. This is the tragic story of J.B. Beasley and her best friend Tracie Hawlett. It was July 31st, 1999. J.B. Beasley was celebrating her 17th birthday, and she planned to attend a party in the nearby town of Headland with her best friend, Tracie Hawlett. The two were excited for a night out, but little did they know they would never make it to that party. The girls left JB's home around 8 p.m. in JB's black Mazda 929. The journey should have been straightforward, but they got lost along the way. They were last seen alive at a gas station in Ozark, Alabama, where they had stopped to ask for directions. According to witnesses, they seemed calm and didn't appear to be in any distress. Let's pause for a moment to talk about J.B. and Tracie. J.B. Beasley was known for her vivacious personality and love for life. She was an outgoing and friendly teenager with dreams of making it big in the fashion industry. Her best friend, Tracie Hawlett, was more reserved but equally beloved by her friends and family. Tracie was known for her kindness and loyalty, always there to lend a helping hand. On that fateful night, their excitement was palpable. They had been looking forward to the party for weeks, planning their outfits and imagining the fun they would have. But somewhere along the way, things took a dark turn. After leaving the gas station, the girls vanished. The next morning, on August 1st, their families reported them missing. Panic set in as hours passed with no sign of the girls. Later that day, JB's car was found abandoned on a dirt road in Ozark. When the police opened the trunk, they made a horrifying discovery: the bodies of JB and Tracie. Both girls had been shot in the head. The community was stunned. How could this happen in their small town? The police immediately launched an investigation, but despite their efforts, they struggled to find any leads. The case quickly went cold, leaving the families and the community with no answers. Over the years, numerous theories emerged. Some speculated that the girls had been targeted by someone they knew, while others believed it was a random act of violence. The police interviewed hundreds of people and collected various pieces of evidence, but nothing led to a solid suspect. To understand the complexities of this case, we need to delve into the investigation itself. Initially, the police focused on the last place the girls were seen alive, the gas station in Ozark. Witnesses there reported seeing the girls around midnight, asking for directions. They seemed calm and did not appear to be in any distress. Despite this, the police found no immediate suspects. They combed through the girls' personal lives, looking for any clues that might explain their disappearance and murder. They interviewed friends, family members, and acquaintances, but nothing concrete emerged. One of the challenges the investigators faced was the lack of physical evidence. The crime scene, the trunk of JB's car, had been compromised by the time the police arrived. The road where the car was found was remote, with little to no surveillance, making it difficult to track any potential suspects. The lack of forensic evidence was a significant hurdle. In the late 1990s, DNA technology was not as advanced as it is today. While the investigators collected samples, they had no way to immediately link them to a suspect. The case grew colder by the day, and the community's hope for justice began to wane. Fast forward to 2018, nearly 2 decades after the murders. Advancements in DNA technology provided a breakthrough in the case. Investigators used a genealogical database to identify a suspect. This method, which had gained popularity in solving cold cases, involves comparing DNA from crime scenes to DNA submitted by individuals to genealogy websites. the DNA evidence led them to Coley McCraney, a truck driver from Dothan, Alabama. McCraney had no prior criminal record that linked him to such violent crimes, making his arrest a surprise to many who knew him. He was described by neighbors and acquaintances as a quiet, hard-working man with a family. McCraney was arrested in March 2019 and charged with capital murder and rape. The DNA evidence was compelling. It matched the DNA found on JB's body. However, McCraney maintained his innocence, claiming that while he did have consensual sex with JB, he did not murder the girls. The arrest of McCraney brought a mix of emotions to the community. On one hand, there was relief that a suspect had been identified after so many years. On the other hand, there was skepticism and disbelief. Could this man, who had lived quietly in their community for so long, really be capable of such a heinous crime? The trial began in 2023, and it garnered significant media attention. The prosecution argued that the DNA evidence placed McCraney at the scene of the crime and that he was responsible for the murders. They presented the DNA match as irrefutable evidence of his guilt. The defense, however, pointed to the lack of other physical evidence tying McCraney to the murders and emphasized his consistent claims of innocence. They argued that the DNA evidence alone was not enough to convict McCraney, especially given the potential for consensual sex with JB. The trial also brought to light various details about the investigation. There were questions about how evidence was handled and whether all possible leads were thoroughly investigated. The case had gone cold for nearly 2 decades, and some argued that mistakes might have been made early on. After a lengthy trial, the jury found McCraney not guilty of the charges. The verdict was controversial, with many feeling that justice had not been served for JB and Tracie. The case remains unsolved, and the families continue to seek closure. This case highlights the advancements in forensic technology and how they can provide new leads in cold cases. However, it also underscores the complexities and challenges in achieving justice, even when there is seemingly concrete evidence. The pain and loss felt by the families of J.B. Beasley and Tracie Hawlett are immeasurable. Their quest for answers continues, and they remain hopeful that one day the true perpetrator will be brought to justice. If you have any information about this case, we urge you to contact the Ozark Police Department. Any detail, no matter how small, could help bring closure to this tragic story. Expanded details and analysis. Now, let's dive deeper into the details of the investigation. After the initial shock of finding the girls' bodies, the police were under immense pressure to solve the case quickly. The families of JB and Tracie were devastated, and the entire community was on edge. The police first focused on gathering evidence from the scene. JB's black Mazda 929 was carefully examined for fingerprints, DNA, and any other forensic evidence that might provide clues about the perpetrator. However, the location where the car was found posed challenges. The remote dirt road had little to no foot traffic, making it difficult to find witnesses or additional evidence. One of the key pieces of evidence was the bullet casings found in the trunk. Ballistics analysis indicated that the girls had been shot with a .38 caliber revolver, a common type of firearm. However, without the actual weapon, this evidence alone was not enough to identify the killer. The police also looked into the girls' personal lives, trying to determine if they had any enemies or if there were any potential motives for their murders. Both JB and Tracie were well liked in their community, with no known enemies. This made the investigation even more challenging, as there were no obvious suspects. Over the years, numerous theories and rumors circulated. Some speculated that the girls had been targeted by someone they knew, perhaps a jealous ex-boyfriend or someone with a grudge. Others believed it was a random act of violence, committed by a stranger who saw an opportunity. One of the most persistent theories was that the girls had stumbled upon something they shouldn't have seen. Some believed that they might have witnessed a drug deal or some other criminal activity and were killed to silence them. However, no evidence was found to support this theory. Despite the lack of leads, the police continued to work tirelessly on the case. They conducted hundreds of interviews and followed up on every tip that came in. Over time, the case grew cold, and new cases demanded the attention of law enforcement. Fast forward to 2018. The advent of genealogical DNA testing revolutionized cold case investigations. This new technique involved uploading crime scene DNA to genealogical databases to find potential relatives of the suspect. It had been successfully used in several high-profile cases, most notably the Golden State Killer case. In the case of J.B. Beasley and Tracie Hawlett, the investigators uploaded the DNA sample collected from J.B.'s body to a public genealogical database. This led them to a distant relative of the suspect, which eventually pointed them to Coley McCraney. McCraney had lived in the area for years and had no prior criminal record. His arrest was a shock to those who knew him. Many described him as a quiet, hard-working family man. The news of his arrest brought a mix of relief and disbelief to the community. As the case went to trial, the prosecution relied heavily on the DNA evidence. They argued that the DNA match was irrefutable proof that McCraney was at the scene and had committed the murders. They presented a timeline of events, suggesting that McCraney had encountered the girls after they left the gas station and forced them into the trunk of the car. The defense, however, presented a different narrative. They acknowledged that McCraney's DNA was found on JB, but argued that this was the result of consensual sex. They pointed out the lack of other physical evidence linking McCraney to the crime scene. There were no fingerprints, no witnesses, and no murder weapon tied to McCraney. The trial also raised questions about the initial investigation. Some evidence had been lost or mishandled over the years, and there were discrepancies in witness statements. The defense used these points to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury found McCraney not guilty. The verdict was met with a mix of emotions. Some felt that justice had been served, while others believed that the real killer was still out there. The families of J.B. and Tracie were devastated by the verdict. For them, the trial had brought hope that they might finally get answers and see justice for their daughters. The not guilty verdict was a harsh blow, leaving them with more questions than ever. Despite the verdict, the case remains open. The police and the families continue to seek answers, hoping that one day new evidence will come to light that will finally solve this tragic case. This case highlights the advancements in forensic technology and how they can provide new leads in cold cases. However, it also underscores the complexities and challenges in achieving justice, even when there is seemingly concrete evidence. The pain and loss felt by the families of J.B. Beasley and Tracie Hawlett is immeasurable. Their quest for answers continues, and they remain hopeful that one day the true perpetrator will be brought to justice. That's all we have for today, fellow Midnight Society members. Did you enjoy tonight's episode? Let us know your theories and questions on our social media channels. Your feedback fuels our investigations. Join us next time as we continue our journey into the heart of darkness. This is Midnight Society, the Bradford Chronicles